Welcome back to One Conversation, the podcast where we believe one conversation can change a life. So, today we're going to be exploring not only red flags in relationships, which I think that's a super common phrase we've heard, but also green flags of relationships as well. So, that term gets thrown around a lot. Today, we're really going to be diving in, discussing some really important red flags, and also introduce these green flags. So, the content that we are drawing from today is provided by One Love. Wanted to give a shout out to them, and I will have those things linked below as well, so everyone can go ahead and take a look at those articles after this episode.
Yeah, so like Lisa said, we've talked about, what an unhealthy relationship looks like. So I think it's also important to kind of identify what are some elements for a healthy relationship and what that kind of looks like as well. So when you are in a healthy relationship, you can kind of guide yourself and be like, this is something that's considered a healthy relationship.
Absolutely. And with that being said, we are going to start today discussing some of the red flags. And we also refer to them as warning signs in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there are so many red flags out there. So, the list that we will be providing is just a snapshot, and it includes some of the most common red flags we see. So let's get started with red flag number one, which is in a relationship is intensity, right? And so intensity is can happen in a lot of different ways. Someone may be expressing their feelings in a very extreme way or over the top behavior. It may be intense or feel like your partner is rushing the pace, right? And really, how I try to think of this is just feeling a lot of pressure from their behavior, right? Or the way that they're behaving. Lastly, they may seem obsessive about wanting to spend time or communicate, right? And maybe it's making you feel uncomfortable, right? By just the way that they are approaching things and how intense their behavior is in regards to maybe the tone of voice that they're using, or maybe the way that they respond, right, to something that you're
Right.
stating, or maybe, wanting to do something and, the way that they get upset by, maybe screaming, or by them becoming, overly possessive. So it may look different, in different situations, but really just that intense part is what to look out for.
Yeah, and that's a big one. I feel like I've been in, the relationships I've spoke on in this podcast before, some of the unhealthy relationships I was in. I feel like intensity was such a big component of it, and it really becomes kind of overwhelming, and really then kind of drifted into every other element of that relationship, right? It kind of gives you these feelings, these anxieties. And so, yeah, that's a big one I think to bring up first and foremost. Our second red flag is possessiveness or jealousy. And I will say that I've had this conversation, especially with middle schoolers when I was teaching at the middle school. And there's a huge misconception for a lot of people, not just young people, that jealousy equals love, right? That someone loves me so much or cares about me so much that, of course, they get jealous. And the way I've always described it when I'm, teaching is that jealousy is a normal human emotion, right? Like if one of I don't know, if one of you guys walked in and was like, I just won the Powerball and I have a bajillion dollars and it has brought this brand new car, I'd kind of be like, oh man, jealous, right? Like it's a human emotion that comes up. But if I'm using my jealousy to control someone, right? So in that relationship setting, like you can't talk to other girls, I'm your girlfriend, or you can't hang out with them, you have to spend that time with me. We always define unhealthy or abusive relationships, right, as you're taking power and control away of someone's personal life. So yeah, jealousy is being used to take power and control away, right? Dictate who these people can talk to, where they can go, then that's not love, right? And so I think that's a really big misconception for a lot of people. So yeah, maybe they get upset when you text or hang out with others. Perhaps this person's wrongly accusing you of flirting or cheating. And sometimes this can get misconstrued as well as just being overprotective or, again, just having those strong feelings. So, yeah, jealousy, I think, is a really important red flag to bring up.
And I feel like nowadays with jealousy, it's like so instant because even on Instagram, if you like somebody's pictures, it's like right in that
Yeah,
moment, right? They're constantly connected to that's a big issue where jealousy can be right in that moment. It just takes seconds for them to
absolutely.
just text that person, call them, yeah.
Right. Social media is a huge, I think, component of that, and checking out, yeah, who you're liking and the comments that you're putting in other people's photos. So, yeah, I'm happy you brought that up.
And then our third red flag is manipulation, which is when someone is trying to take control over your decisions. So kind of giving you like an ultimatum, like if you don't do this, I won't do that for you, or you need to do this for me. And also, in actions can be manipulated, by using somebody's maybe their insecurities against them, like just giving them put downs or just letting them know, like, I don't like when you wear that, just picking on these insecurities to kind of have that manipulation, that control over that person.
Yeah.
And then also emotions, they're just kind of minimizing or either minimizing or not acknowledging that person's feelings. So if they do tell you how they feel, either not acknowledging it or just making it sound like it's not such a big deal in a way where they can kind of like manipulate them as well. And I feel like this is something really hard to kind of pinpoint and just to acknowledge, because it can be so subtle and so passive aggressive at times. Um, but a good little tip on like maybe how you can kind of tell if you are being manipulated is if you can if someone tries to convince you to do something that you may feel uncomfortable. I always say, like, listen to your gut. We have like these instincts inside us, and sometimes like we kind of just have to follow those. And if you feel like something's wrong, then maybe just kind of look into that a little bit more and just kind of see where that goes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think what's really important to just highlight is that, it's so important to know these red flags and to really dive into these red flags because, maybe some of these signs we have experienced in a relationship, right? And we may have identified it as, normal, or as, that other person really just loving us, right? Because we don't really know
Mm-hmm.
what a healthy relationship looks like. Maybe we grew up in a household where we witnessed, our parents not be in a healthy relationship, or maybe, we've just been in relationships that are just unhealthy, and so we don't know any
Right.
different from that. And it's not for someone to feel ashamed of being in relationships like that, but I think it's so important to kind of have that awareness piece and just know that, these red flags are signs of warning signs of a relationship being unhealthy or abusive. And it's so important to know what a healthy relationship looks like, because once you're in one, you feel completely different, right? You feel safe. And
Yeah.
that is what everyone should feel, right? Safe and comfortable, and even have the ability to be yourself. So thank you so much for sharing that, Miguel. Kind of moving on to red flag number 4 is isolation. And we have definitely thrown this word out there throughout many episodes. And so, this is a very common tactic that is used in an abusive relationship or unhealthy relationship to gain more power and control over the other person. And so this behavior does not just start off severe, right? Or very visible. It
Right.
may start off slow. Maybe, your partner is asking you to spend more time with you, right? And so you may see that as a sign of them loving you or really just appreciating you, right? But then it slowly starts escalating into them really expecting you to just give them all your time, right? And maybe not allowing you to spend time with others, or pressuring you, or giving you a difficult time when you are spending time with someone else. Maybe it's your best friend and they're constantly texting you and asking you when you're coming home, or when you're going to, end that so that you can go and hang out with them. Or possibly them giving you a hard time when you do go out so that you don't go out with your friends anymore or hang out with your family, right? And so it can start very slow and just really escalate really quickly. They may even ask you to choose between them or, your friends, or
Yeah.
even questioning the judgment of your friends and family, right? And so I think this one's really critical and important because this is a common tactic, like I mentioned, that we've seen, especially with the people that we serve, right? And the individuals that we work with. This is something that we often see. And what happens is, this individual who is being isolated ends up becoming very extremely dependent on their controlling partner, right? Which just really allows them to have more power and control over them. So, again, this is a very common tactic to just be able to gain that power and control. And so, it's super important to kind of recognize this and just know the difference between someone really wanting to spend time with you and also somebody wanting to gain possessiveness and control over you.
Yeah, and I appreciate you so much diving into that. I remember it was our episode on teen dating violence, and Brianna was still with us at the time before she went on maternity leave. But the three of us spoke to our own kind of real life examples, and I shared that my first significant, really unhealthy relationship, that was one of the main components. And that isolation came out of him creating a lot of issues with my friends, creating a lot of fights, causing a lot of tension to where suddenly, my friends were kind of like not willing to come spend time because we lived together. And once, friends were written off for him, just kind of creating that scenario, right? Like, oh, these aren't your friends. Look, they're trying to break us up, this and that. That's not what a good friend is. So much manipulation going on. I kind of started to believe that. My friends backed up. And once they did, that, unhealthy or abusive behavior, all of it just escalated, right? Because there was no one there to step in and say, like, hey, are you okay? So yeah, that's a huge one. And I just want to backtrack a tiny bit. I really appreciate it, JC, how you said that a lot of this stuff is kind of normal, right? And so that's how it's really hard for a lot of people to spot these red flags because yeah, so much of this is just normalized, right? And a lot of people, even myself, up until, a certain age, I was in relationships that really felt like this. And, the jealousy, that kind of isolation, just wanting to spend every second together, I thought was really normal, right? And something to expect in relationships. And it is really odd once you start being in healthy relationships and feeling how that feels. It can be like really overwhelming. I remember my first healthy relationship, I was just like, whoa, like, what is this? Like, I don't deserve this. Like, why is he doing all these things for me? And it was like, no, wait, like, I do deserve all this. I'm just so not used to it that it's like so foreign, right? It just feels so different because, yeah, you're just kind of looking for those awful feelings. You're looking to sit with that anxiety that's so normalized. And so, yeah, I'm really happy that we're taking this time.
And I just feel like media has a lot to do with it too, because I feel like sometimes, like, for example, like the
Yes.
Twilight movies and stuff, those are like very, it shows like how like jealousy, like again, in that movie it portrays jealousy as being something like that's how much she loves her and all this, and like he does like creepy stuff,
Right.
like watching her sleep and just being out there, like those are things that are not normal. But the fact that they're like kind of
Right.
normalizing it in movies, I'm just like, well, no wonder sometimes youth has such a distorted view on what a relationship should look like when they're getting all this stuff from media and getting it from from like the internet, social media, all this stuff. So it's understandable
Yeah.
where they get it from.
Exactly, because if they're not going into classes like we were providing at our schools, right? If there's not a healthy relationships class, because let's face it, as much as I think that's so needed in
Hmm.
every school across this country and the world, but when, especially young people aren't getting that, yeah, they're going to look to media. They're going to look to their peers, right? To kind of see what's normal or see like what they should be expecting or what they should be doing, filling those roles in a relationship. If we're not giving them healthy behaviors to model
Yeah.
after,
Yeah.
what else do we expect, right? And I love that you bring that specific movie of Twilight up too, because I've thought about that plenty of times, right? And of course, that's just one example of like the misconceptions and kind of like the wrong direction, right? That media can
Hmm.
point, especially a lot of young people into. And so, moving on our list, we have our next red flag, which is belittling someone. So, maybe doing and saying things that make just your partner feel so bad about themselves. This can include name calling, any kind of rude remarks about maybe them or people that they're even close with, right? Or even criticizing you, maybe for little things about what you look like, what you're doing, who your friends are. And so, if your partner really puts you down or makes fun of you and really plays it off as a joke, it's really important to know that this is just a form of belittling, right? And if you're really uncomfortable, then that's something that, really should be examined, right? Because I think we all can have dark senses of humor. We can have funny little like ways that we could interact, and we could have moments with our partner that's, if we're comfortable with it, if it's like in our boundaries, again, maybe we just have this like certain sense of humor that we can like joke with each other. If it's consented to and those conversations have happened and you're both okay with it, that's one thing. But if your partner is really doing and saying things that leaves you feeling bad about yourself, that's really important, right? It's really important that you talk to your partner about that and try to set those boundaries. Because over time, we know that this is really going to make kind of anyone start to lose a significant amount of confidence in themselves, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think anyone that's told, and we know this in our field, anyone that's told like all day, every day, like you're not good enough or you deserve this bad stuff happening to you, it kind of doesn't matter how strong, how resilient you are going into that. Like, that's going to have an effect on you, right? Like, you're going to really start to internalize that, if not, really believe that in yourself. So, belittling is definitely a big one to look out for.
And then red flag number 5 is guilting. When a partner makes you feel responsible for the actions they choose to take or make you feel like it's your job to make them happy. They could blame you for things that are out of your control, especially to make you feel bad for them. So some examples are these can include threatening, self-harm or harming others that that you may love. They do this type of threats to kind of take control over you as well, or just kind of guilt you into doing whatever they want you to do. It's like another way of controlling that person, just making them feel like they have to because they feel guilty. And I feel like sometimes, like kind of like what Lisa said, if you're belittling them so much they believe it, it's easier in a way to
Mm-hmm.
kind of make them feel guilty for those actions or for what things are going wrong, even though it could be something totally out of their control.
Yeah.
Thank you, Miguel. And so our sixth red flag is volatility. This is when someone has big or unpredictable reactions to things that, may end up making you feel scared, intimidated, or even confused. So, pretty much, I'd like to refer to this as like, feeling unsafe, right? Feeling like you're
Mm-hmm.
walking on eggshells. You don't know how they will react to things, right? You don't know what kind of response you're going to get. And so, that relationship may feel like a roller coaster of
Mm-hmm.
ups and downs, right? Sometimes there could be great moments or okay moments, and then suddenly, you have a really bad moment in the way that they respond, right? And there could be this overreaction. It can literally go from 1 to 10, right? Where you feel like there's
Yeah.
no stability or you're not sure what you're going to get. And so possibly what that could look like is, they may respond in a violent way. They may respond in a very aggressive way by either screaming or threatening. And so this form of red flag may look very unstable in a relationship, right? Where again, you're like, it's kind of the unknown. You don't know what you're going to get, and it just feels very unpredictable, which, in a relationship, that can be very difficult, right? To be
Yeah.
with someone who you're unsure of what you're going to get. In reality, if you're walking on eggshells, it may feel like, you can't be yourself. You can't respond
Right.
authentically. You can't behave authentically, and that's something that can really take a toll on someone eventually.
Yeah, like how exhausting, right? Because it really comes down to like I'm doing that because I know in a moment's notice I could feel totally unsafe or I don't know what's going to happen, and yeah, to feel that all the time, right? Like I'm constantly kind of looking over my back, that kind of, and I think we talked about this in our stalking episode, right? Kind of this constant hypervigilance of I'm always trying to look out for what I'm doing, what I'm saying, and how I'm approaching them. It's exhausting, right? At a point, and yeah, just no way that someone should have to carry themselves and have to have that relationship, right?
In a way, it sounds like you're kind of being like in survival mode, just kind of trying to like survive in this relationship, which can be
Yeah.
exhausting. Like you said, it's just
Hmm.
hard to do. And then now that we were like talking about all these different types of red flags, I feel like it's important to know that we're talking about in a relationship with like a partner and stuff, but this can also be like within friends as well. It's like any
Hmm.
sort of relationship that you
Absolutely.
have. I when we were talking about it, I was like, this can be applied to any sort of relationship. With friends, with even with parents, with any person that you have, a relationship. It doesn't necessarily have to be with a partner, because these things could look. I mean, there could be some toxic friendships as well.
Absolutely. I'm really happy that you mentioned that because that's absolutely the case. And to be honest with you, I could think back to a few quote unquote, I'm using air quotes for all our listeners, friendships that I had in the past that were really unhealthy, right? And I think that's kind of sometimes even harder because now as we're getting more knowledge, more education on intimate partner relationships, right, that's kind of a little more visible, but we don't always necessarily talk about friendships as well, right, and the healthy and the toxic behaviors that
Hmm.
yeah, totally exist, right, in some friendships. And so yeah, I just love that we took the time. Again, even though red flags is like a super common thing, I've seen like a million memes. I actually saw one the other day that was like, you know, they said that he had red flags, but my question was, how red is the flag, right? Like, there's just like so many things about red flags out there. But it's really important to not only discuss them and kind of give a little bit more of a snapshot, right, of what they could be. Because, like, again, a lot of these things are really normal. But at the same time, I'm really kind of excited to talk about the green flags, right, in relationships, because I think that's not heard as commonly. And of course, the red flags, too, that we just shared, they're only such a small snapshot. And so we encourage you, I'm going to link some things below on red flags and green flags, kind of bigger, more intensive lists. That way, our listeners, if you feel compelled and you want to kind of do this work on your own after this episode ends, yeah, you can kind of go and kind of search into some more of these. And so let's switch gears and let's talk about the green flags, because yeah, we never want to leave our listeners with just kind of everything to look out for, right? We want to empower you with what to also expect, right? And the things that you should be looking for. And so our number one green flag is that you can be yourself. So kind of challenging that that thought we were just talking about, right? Of like, you can't be yourself, you're walking on eggshells, right? You're constantly kind of fearful of how someone will react. This is the opposite, right? You can be yourself. You don't feel like you're acting like someone that you're not. You don't feel like you have to hide anything about yourself. You feel like you can be honest, that you can speak up about things without being judged or shamed or any other of those consequences, right? Like being in that fear or dealing with some kind of reaction from your partner. And so this is so important because we know that realistically, we want to build relationships with authenticity, right? We all go through the honeymoon phase. We all kind of show and kind of come with the best versions of ourselves at first, right? But it's super important that, yeah, we're still being ourselves, right? We're being honest about who we are, our intentions, because if we're not building a relationship off of authenticity, then it might not go so well down the line, right? When maybe someone thinks they've fallen in love with a specific person and suddenly, nope, just kidding, I was kind of just putting on this front, right? And so that's our number one to start off with. You can just be yourself and not be fearful of that.
And then our next green flag is seeing yourself smiling and laughing with that person is a great sign as well. And, I always feel like, you listen to yourself, and sometimes you just gotta listen to your body. And if you get like these jumpy unicorn feelings in your stomach or whatever, and you're smiling and laughing, and you really love being with that person, then I feel like that's a good sign. That's a good sign that this person is somebody that they're treating you. They know your worth, right? So it's important to just kind of look at yourself as well within a relationship. And if you see that you're just really happy, smiling, or smiling to your extent of being joyful, then that's a good sign, just paying attention to you and not just to that person. And I feel like if you give yourself that attention and you notice these things, that's a very good sign, a green sign.
Yeah. And our next green flag, which is flag number 3, is feeling respected in that relationship, right? Which we know is crucial, because definitely respect is a great foundation for a healthy relationship. So we know that boundaries are so important in any relationship. And in case you haven't listened to that episode where we go over boundaries, we definitely encourage you to go back and to listen in. But going kind of back to feeling respected, and a boundary setting process in the beginning of the relationship is very crucial, right? And that means they are not rushing you or making you do anything you are not ready to do physically or emotionally. And I just wanted to quickly kind of highlight what respect looks like in a healthy relationship, because sometimes we talk about respect and we expect people to know what respect means, but that has never been modeled, and you have never really seen what respect looks like, or you don't really know what the definition of respect is. It can be very difficult, right? Because I clearly remember being told, in school, you have to be respectful and respect, but I really did not know what respect looked like, right?
Yeah.
And so I always say there's always this expectation that all should know what respect looks like, but some of us don't. So this is what respect looks like in a healthy relationship: being able to talk openly and honestly with each other, listening to each other, valuing each other's feelings and needs, right? And does that mean that you're going to understand the other person on how they're feeling? No, right? We may definitely
Right.
have different feelings if we were possibly in that situation. We may never understand why they're feeling that way, but it's really important to respect, right? And value how they're feeling, right? And to just really validate those feelings for them. Compromise, right? We just talked about the importance of compromising, speaking kindly to and about each other. And I always say, like, kind words with a kind tone, right? Because sometimes when it comes to kind words, you can say something kindly, but if you're saying it with a very rude tone or in a tone where it may even come off as sarcastic, then, those words may not go a long way, right? Or may
Right.
not have the same impact. Giving each other space, especially if someone's voicing or verbalizing that they need it, right? What better way to show respect and that you love them or care about them by, just respecting that and respecting their wishes, supporting each other's interests, hobbies, careers. So really, that empowerment and support piece is crucial in this area, and then building each other up. And again, kind of talking about that empowering one another. And again, this relationship does not just have to be in an intimate relationship. This goes all around. And I think when I think about my friendship specifically, I always kind of hold a standard now, which used to never happen. And I've noticed that my inner circle has gotten a little bit small, but it's stronger, right? In the sense
Yeah.
that I feel like the people that are around me are people that understand me, that have similar values, that see, friendships the same way that I see it, right? And kind of expect the same thing in regards to, feeling respected and having that mutual respect and being kind to one another. So I just thought it was really important to kind of quickly highlight, what that may look like in a healthy relationship.
And I love that you did because yeah, I think respect can be it's a buzzword we use all the time, right? We all want to be respected in our relationships, but sometimes like actually knowing what respect can really look like can be yeah kind of challenging, right? Or if someone's not given those examples, it could be kind of difficult to figure that out. But I really like that you kind of segued right into our next green flag with that too. So, green flag number 4 is that you want similar things in life. Now, before I even go further, I'll preface this by saying that, in a friendship or an intimate partner relationship or a familial relationship, you don't have to have everything in common. In fact, I don't think that's like sometimes like possible that you have like every single thing in common with someone else. But if you have like some interests that differ, hobbies that differ, totally fine. But if there's an underpinning that you do share a lot of these common values, right? Like maybe you have the same understanding and the same desire for trust in your relationship or honesty and ambition, right? So whatever's really important to you, and it's really crucial to have conversations about what you want long term, what you want out of this relationship, even being a friendship, right, or an intimate partner relationship. It's important to have those conversations, right? You don't have to, set a wedding date for 5 years down the road if you're dating someone. It doesn't have to be like that, but maybe discussing like, are we both kind of moving in the same direction? Maybe, along the lines, do we want those same things, right? So say if we are still together 5 years from now, it's not this big surprise that suddenly, well, we want completely different things out of this, right? And so
Absolutely.
it's really interesting because in doing this reading, one of the top reasons that young couples get divorced is because they don't have a shared vision of success. And it was specifically to success. And that was really interesting for me to read that. And so it's a conversation you can have early on, right? You can ask, like, what does success mean to you? Or, I mean, going off these other things, it could be like, well, what does like a good friendship mean to you, right? Or what are you really looking to get out of this relationship, right? Or like, what are your goals in life? Having those conversations with people, I just think it's really important, right? It adds to a depth in your relationship, to knowing and understanding that person. It helps maintain respect towards them, right? Because you know what's important to them, what they're looking for. And all around, you're kind of just building something stronger, right? Because you're really kind of getting to the bottom of this. And again, not leaving room for down the line, maybe a year into a relationship, realizing like we just don't want the same things. And now we've spent kind of all this time, right? And so, yeah, wanting similar things, again, does not have to be everything, is a big green flag.
And I feel like wanting similar things also leads into the next green flag, number 5, which is kind of feeling challenged. So, if you have a goal, having your partner to, tell you that either you can do it, or even if it's hard, just them rooting you on, kind of being your cheerleader, at the same time, even if it's difficult,
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa, right? Like if that person wants to do something, go for that promotion, like you let them know that, you support them, and you are, rooting for them, and that they can do it. So I feel like just having that, being challenged in a good way is always necessary
Mm-hmm.
as well, especially with like, careers, with work, whatever it looks like with school. I think it's good to have that person that can kind of motivate you to be better, right? To be a better version of yourself, in whatever way or
Absolutely.
shape that looks like. I think just being challenged is good. I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like that helps for intimate partner relationships and with friendship as well. Because like JC was saying, I feel like a lot of the where I'm at is because of my friends and stuff, because they pushed me. Those times when you think that you can't go anymore, you think that it's too hard or whatever, those tough times, you do need that
Right.
support system where it's like where they tell you like, yeah, you can do it, like you've got this far, you just have a little bit more to go. So just being challenged to be like, I got this is important.
Absolutely. I heard something great at one point. It was actually from a teacher. And she said, I've always told my students if they say, that I'm pushing them, I say it's because I believe that you can do it. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why, right? And it's not about pushing to make you uncomfortable, but it's pushing because I know you're capable of that growth. And when she said that, that really stuck with me. And I just thought, like, yeah, that's a really empowering framework to look at.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think sometimes we do our best work, right? And we are our best selves when we're challenged because sometimes we don't see
Yeah.
it, but others do. And so I think that's what's really critical and important to know as well. And our last green flag is, you wanting to make sacrifices, and really how I kind of think of this as, an effort to want to compromise. But it's really important to know that not too many, right? You should never feel
Mm-hmm.
like in any form of relationship, you are feeling like you're doing all the sacrificing, right? Because that could be a sign of a red flag. But making sacrifices that you're comfortable with as a way to put in effort in a relationship is awesome, and is a way of you also probably making the other person feel really cared for. So we know that commitment in a relationship involves compromise and sacrifice no matter what. You have to be willing to give up certain things when you commit to someone, right? And again, I try to think of this as a way that you compromise or as a way of you putting in effort, but you do not and should not give up everything. And you can't expect them to give up everything either. It's about balance and willingness
Mm-hmm.
to compromise. And, again, just highlighting, feeling compromised. And you should never feel forced, right? I
Right.
think that is a big, um, an important piece to really highlight. If you are feeling forced to have to sacrifice something, then that is definitely not a green flag. That would be more of a red flag. But if you're wanting, right, to sacrifice something to make the other person feel cared for, or to just, put effort into your relationship, then that is something that could be considered a green light.
Yeah. I mean, because we're all going to have moments in a relationship, right? Where maybe, maybe we're growing and maybe it's for the better. But a very unrealistic expectation that, you're going to change someone. And nor should you want to do that, right? Like if you're in a
Mm-hmm.
relationship or a friendship with somebody, there's obviously enough of their personality, their values there that you like about them, right? And so to think that, all these little things pop up, well, they could just change all of them, not a great expectation to have, right? It's not realistic. Because, I mean, again, maybe some of those things, right? Maybe there's healthy growth that they can grow into, right? And there's things
Mm-hmm.
that they that benefit them, right? That really help them. Kind of like we were saying, what Miguel was introducing about challenging in a good way, right? Like maybe there's behaviors that really serve them to work on those, and you're willing to do that with them, right? But again, if you're looking to fundamentally change someone, especially in a dating relationship, I would just say maybe find someone that just better fits that to begin with, right? All those
Mm-hmm.
needs and all those expectations. Just this might not be the person, right? If they're going to have to change everything about them. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it's just really important that we just take this mental inventory in relationship. Like I said before, I think at a point I was only in unhealthy, or I will say not so great relationships. And so to get into a healthy one, yeah, it just felt so odd. It really did like feel bizarre to me to be treated in a healthy way. I was just not used to it. And kind of what we spoke about before, a lot of media and influences from media like showed me that, that healthy relationship was kind of odd, right? That, I should be looking for some of these normalized unhealthy behaviors. And so just to kind of stop and take that inventory, right? Like gauge how you feel in these relationships. And so if you start to notice red flags, then yeah, it becomes really important, right? To have these boundary setting conversations, to let your partner, your friend, or your family member know how this is making you feel, how it's not serving that relationship. And even if you're noticing green flags, maybe you're sitting here right now like, wow, like my relationship was kind of like all those green flags, yay, and B, you can even have conversations about that, right? Like maybe, you and your partner are just kind of like magically killing it and you're providing each other all these things without having these conversations. But, if your partner's doing things that you really appreciate and maybe make you feel really respected, it's a great idea just to even mention that to them, right? So, like, maybe I love the way that you handled that with me. Thank you so much for giving me that patience. It really made me feel respected. Or I really like, just how you're helping me with the situation. You're not pressuring me, and I really appreciate that, right? Because it's like you're giving your partner kind of like this framework and this guide for like the things that they're doing right. And then in the future, right, it's like, oh, I know that they really appreciated this, right? Or I know that when I did this for them, it was something that, made them feel really respected. And so now I can continue to do that, right? Or I know that that's something that's working really well in our relationship. And so
Yeah.
definitely important to keep these things in mind.
Absolutely. And I think these red flags and green flags are important to keep in mind personally as well, right? So if you feel like you are possibly doing something that would fall under the red flags, it's really important to know that that's just not healthy in a relationship. And there are ways that you could really get help and support to kind of turn those red flags into green flags, right? So that one, you're kind of providing that mutual respect in a relationship. And two, so that you're also, providing someone with that safe space, right? And that safe
Yeah.
and comfortable and healthy relationship. So I just wanted to quickly highlight that. But with that being said, we just want to thank all our listeners for being here. I know that Lisa has a lovely meditation that she will be providing us with. As usual, we do a little bit of self-care during our episodes to make sure that we're all taking care of ourselves.
Absolutely. So today we're going to be going through this great little positivity meditation that I found. And so, all of our listeners, my lovely hosts, if you're available to take on this meditation at this time, I just want you to start getting yourself into your comfortable seated position. As you're kind of, fixing yourself in your chair, maybe you're leaning your head back, I want you just to close your eyes. And I want you just to ground your feet below you, or if you're laying down, just feel grounded as you're laying. And I want you to take a nice deep breath in and out. Gently close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and out. Continue with these slow inhales and exhales. And I want you to start visualizing a beach and an ocean in front of you. Take a deep breath in as the tides come in. Exhale, the tides fade back to the ocean. And I want you to imagine that you're sitting on the shore. You hear a voice in the distance telling you, "Today I am happy. Today I am capable. Today I am worthy." As you breathe in and out, I want you to silently repeat this mantra to yourself. Today I am happy. Today I am capable. Today I am worthy. Keep repeating these words in your mind as you watch the tide go slowly up to shore and back out to sea. Today I am happy. Today I am capable. Today I am worthy. If any other thoughts come to your mind, focus on your breath and the waves coming in and crashing back out. Nothing else matters in this moment besides the waves coming in and these words. Today I am happy. Today I am capable. Today I am worthy. Take a deep breath in, hold, and exhale. Take a deep breath in. Today I am happy. Exhale. Deep breath in. Today I am capable. And exhale. One last big breath in. Today I am worthy. And exhale. And start to close out that image of the beach in your mind's eye. Start to come back into your body. Start to wake your body up slowly. Wiggle your fingers and toes. Make any little movements in your chair. Gently float your eyes back open into the room. And I appreciate my hosts and our listeners for taking that little moment with ourselves today.
Thank you, Lisa, for that meditation and providing us with a great piece of self-care for today's episode. Again, to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this important topic on red flags and green flags. We hope you'll join us for our next One Conversation episode.